In today's video, I'm gonna tell you exactly when to train to failure.
All by myself.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Ravella from ProPhysique.com. In today's video, I actually am excited about giving you this discussion because it comes from the Minds at Mass, the monthly application of strength sport, and I want to give them a huge congratulations to Mike Zordis, Eric Helms, and Greg Nuckols because it's their 2-year anniversary of this amazing publication. So if you're interested in the publication, they give it to me for free so I can review it and put out some information for awareness for you guys, but it is available down below. I'm going to put a link for it. If you're interested in the research behind what is a growing evidence-based movement in the sport of physique enhancement, I try to look at this information and make some decisions based on that. And this article was a great one because it talks about training to failure. And I love the information that they put into this. So a new study came out with 10 men put through the study, and they had different training variables and they tested things to see what was happening with fatigue and muscle damage along the way. The results are kind of in line with the way I've approached my training program setup for the last couple of years and the philosophies that I espouse, but it's always good to get more information on these topics so that we can continue to make informed decisions. So it's great that these guys are doing this kind of thing because they're actually just looking at the research that's pertinent to us. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but there's so much research out there, and sometimes you'll see quotes and things pulled out of research that are kind of out of place. Well, these guys take a research review and then they break it down, explain what they like, what they don't like, and what the steps of what they'd like to see next. So let's talk about this one. Now this one is done in, like I said, 10 men who are going to go through a training program, and they were going to be put through a setup where they were either going to train to failure or they were going to train to an RPE of 5, meaning about half a failure. So if their predicted reps were 4, they had to complete 4, or if their predicted reps were 4, they had to complete 2. That would have been the low reps. The high reps, if they had to complete 12, they had to get to 12. And if it was expected for 12 for the other group, they were going to get to 6. So what did we look at? Well, as I think all of us can agree, what happens when we train to failure, especially at the higher reps, like the 10 and the 12, is that fatigue and recovery take a lot longer than if you don't train to failure. They also performed a vertical leap test the day after to assess performance, and there was a large degradation in the performance of the vertical leap of the men that actually had gone to failure versus those that did not. They also looked at some hormone markers. Most important one would be creatine kinase, and they noticed that the creatine kinase was still elevated after 2 days in the group that went to failure, whereas the group that didn't go to failure, it was back to normal levels. Well, what does this tell us? Well, this tells us that there's definitely more muscle damage in the group going to failure. And I don't think any of this is news. But what it does do is it allows us to intelligently approach our programming. And here's where I tell you exactly what to do. When should you go to failure? You should go to failure in your training sets if you have, I would say, more than 3 days between your next training session hitting that body part. A lot that they talk about in this article is programming where 3 days per week is a setup for squat. That is a popularized program for something like a power lifter, right? Where the skill of the lift is just as important as the strength of the lifter, okay? Because a heavy squat is certainly a skill. So getting more days of that skill ends in a better result. However, you can't go to failure every single day that you squat, otherwise you will lose a lot of performance and risk injury because your performance will drop, and the real problem there is you're not recovered safely for the next session. Also, your ability to perform is going to drop, so your training volume is going to drop over time. So when should you use failure? Absolutely, I would say use failure if and when you have a program design that allows you adequate recovery. I train with some people that train to failure every single set of every single workout. However, they also only train those body parts once every 5-6 days, right? So they're pushing their bodies to failure, crushing it. And I'm talking about my man Doug Miller. Whenever I train with him, we get after it. But he also doesn't repeat bouts of training to that body part again for a while. He has a day just for shoulders, a day just for arms, a day just for back, okay? So that type of training setup for someone like Doug makes sense. And I'm going to hypothesize here why I think it makes sense. Doug requires so much training volume to make progress that I don't know if he would have the same amount of success if he were to periodize his programming, meaning he were to back off a rep or two in each set and allow himself to hit the body parts with more frequency. Now, research shows that more training volume total in a week is going to give a better result. So someone like myself, I feel better when I'm able to hit a body part twice a week. So what do? I train with the purpose of not going to failure every single set, so I am recovered for my next session. And I'm gonna get more into this when I talk about my new training program that my man Chris is writing me, because we are incorporating a lot of these principles. And part of it is because I have a leg day and then I have a day in between, and I have 2 leg days. Well, I can't go to failure and kill myself on that first leg day. I won't recover in time to have a quality workout the next time. So that's it. When should you train to failure? When time is limiting. When you really just want to get after it and get a crazy pump and just enjoy the gym, but you know you're going to get adequate recovery before you train that body part again. When should you not train to failure? Well, I would say if you have an event where you're going to have to perform. So let's say, since the vertical leap, let's say you have a basketball league you play in, or a volleyball league you play in, or heck, even a baseball, softball league that you play in, and you're worried about your performance the next day, but you want to work out, just avoid training to failure. Also, if your training program is set up so that you're hitting a body part multiple times per week, maybe you're hitting legs on Tuesday and you're hitting them again on Friday, you only have a 48-hour window to recover. Maybe that first session of the week is more built around power. Now the training session that you have on Friday, you can get after it a little bit. Why? Because now you've got Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, 3 days to recover before you're back at it on Tuesday for another one of these power type sessions where the reps are a little bit lower and perhaps you're staying a little bit more away from failure. The same thing can go for all the big movements. And I think a lot of the programming that I like is where we take the big compound movements and we train them with intelligence, and we use the smaller movements, the single joint movements like a bicep curl, like a side lateral dumbbell raise, and we get a little bit more volume in that way through using failure with a little bit of frequency. So as you see, there is a good way to train with failure and without. And a lot of the research shows that there's actually probably not as much benefit to training to failure as there is to stopping a rep shy and getting more frequency in. However, I've seen great results from people that train both ways. So I think there's still a lot to learn from this, but that would be my current recommendations for almost everybody. I would have them training to failure only if they're on a program where they're getting adequate time to recover before their next session. So use that as you will. Hope you guys are having an awesome day. Be sure to click that link below. Give my man Eric, Mike, and Greg a big thumbs up for 2 years of an amazing publication. All right, guys, I'll talk to you tomorrow.